In 1947, an experiment was set up at a covert Soviet test facility in a military-sanctioned scientific experiment that was funded by the Soviet Union during World War II. 5 prisoners that were deemed enemies of the state were kept in a sealed gas chamber with an airborne stimulant continually administered to keep the subjects awake for 30 consecutive days. The prisoners were falsely promised that they would be set free from the prison if they completed the 30-day experiment. During the experiment, the researchers carefully monitored their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since the gas was toxic in high concentrations. The researchers would communicate and monitor the prisoners using microphones and a 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows. Within the prisoners' chambers were stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, while supplied with running water and a toilet, and enough dry food to last all 5 for over a month. Once the experiment started, everything was fine for the first 5 days, as the subjects hardly complained, having been promised that they would be freed if they submitted to the test, and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted, as more days went by, they continued to talk more about their increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a much darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were, and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, specifically the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. However, after 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs. For 3 hours straight, he continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers concluded that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather, didn't react at all. Later, the captives continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes, while the screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it was impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. Days later, on the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do. To get a reaction from the captives, they used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives. They were afraid that they were all either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response: "We no longer want to be freed." A debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber. At midnight on the 15th day, the chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state state that they were in was life. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subject stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out, another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Another 5 other soldiers lost their lives, if you count ones that committed suicide in the weeks followed the incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately, struggling to attack anyone in reach and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. Surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The test subjects, who had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies, the destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth as the researchers initially thought. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begged for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given: I must remain awake.